stimulated enough that I would want to put a whole nother career in. But then there's that guy. That guy might have been the perfect example. He appeared to be a lawyer that was mentally exhausted with being a lawyer. So he might be ready to be a doctor or an engineer or an architect or something that's... I just started to Zoom recording it, but people listen to my thoughts. So anyways, the long and short, it is somebody like my son. He's a standout football talent, and soccer. But in the future, that would have been understood like at a very young age. So his educational process in public education, like through artificial intelligence and computers at the desk, every desk would have a computer, but it would be tailored towards him with games that would be like, okay, he's gonna be pro, so he's gonna have to deal with the press, and he's gonna have to deal with friends and entourage, because in the future there's gonna be a role model clause. Like if you're a poor role model and there's something that is just so abrasive to me particularly, or the moral compass of the entire world, then your contract's over. Your contract is finished. Like, you don't get to play the next game. You don't get another rep, and it's like, we loved everything you did up until that poor choice, right? So to prevent that ever from happening, people that are destined to be pro or likely to be pro, like a university, say Division I or whatever, any division level athlete in the US, their education a certain percentage of the time, instead of learning about history and all, well, there's learning elements of history, but history changes, right? And history is a lie based on whoever won the war, right? Really, history is a lie. In the future, history will be the truth. I'll try to dig through the mud, but countries come and go and what have you, right? So what's the point of learning all the four founders and all that stuff? It's one thing to learn in the Constitution, the elements of that particular society. That's great. And then the first one and then the last one are the only two that really ever matter. And then anybody pivotal in between. Like, unfortunately, John F. Kennedy in the States got assassinated. But other than that, like, the one thing that he said that became one of the most valuable tools in my mental tool belt is, it's not what your country could do for you, it's what could you do for your country. If every citizen of mine on the planet had that mentality, we're an indomitable species, right? You want to stand out for your country. You don't want to be getting social security checks. You want to be paying the most taxes in your country because it gives your country the most infrastructure, the better infrastructure, the best infrastructure. People are complaining about potholes and stuff like that, and in Canada we got public health care, right? We're lucky, so we have higher taxes. So which is, in the future, there's going to be, everywhere's going to have public health care, but a privatized element, right? So now whatever it is, say half of what you're making a day would be, you can fast track yourself in the emergency department. So if you make $200 a day, you want to pay $100 to stand in the business kiosk line with the save the taxpayers line, basically, and pay for some of the medical expense line. Then you're more than welcome, right? And then then nurses and doctors would have to evaluate how often. So as long as there's you can't wait too long. Like, basically, you can't wait too long. Like, so you can only expedite so much, right? Like, maybe like if you're waiting for an X-ray machine or a specific device, the fast track, you can, like, if you're waiting for an hour and then a new fast track guy comes in, you can't be pushed down again. If you maybe one fast track person, like, for that, but once you're in the emergency, the triage and waiting for the doctor in the room, you can wait as long as your public health care would allow you to wait, right? It's free, right? If they're reattaching your thumb for you and doing you a service for the rest of your life for free, just for your taxes, right? That's what public health care does, right? You know, unfortunately in the States they have privatized healthcare, and it's brutal, because, like, I couldn't imagine, like, having to make a decision, okay, do I have to sell my car if I don't have insurance? do I have to sell my car, remortgage my house just to reattach my thumb so I can provide for my city, my country, right? Like that's the flaw with privatized healthcare is you diminish your citizens' ability to provide for the country by making them not reattach these appendages, and then now I can't work a job that requires a thumb on that hand. I have to do something else, right? Or now if it's a leg, now I can't do that, right? So that's why there has to be public healthcare, but at the same time, privatized healthcare for anything cosmetic, anything cosmetic. And if you wanted to challenge, I'm just kind of narrating and going with it. But if you want to challenge the public sector, you could if you don't like the public guy's opinion, you're like, okay, the oncologist said this. It's also privatized. I'm now able to pay and get a second opinion. The second opinion is I'm next in queue or whatever. I'm in queue and I'm able to get a second opinion because, unfortunately in Canada it's public. So I kind of have to take what I get. But if I was in a privatized healthcare, I'd be like, that's not good enough. That answer is not good enough. If it wasn't, then it's not good enough. I demand a second opinion. Give me my money back. Give me my money back. I want a second opinion. It's like getting a bad haircut. Why pay for a bad haircut? There's this one lady, she gave me a bad haircut, and I wasn't as confident then. And so I took it on the chin. But what I did was I called to make sure she was never working every time, and that sucked, right? So with public health care, so that being said, if you go to the doctors, most people have a smartphone, write down what you want to ask the doctor. You got a very limited time, but write down the questions you want to ask, like in your notepad, or text it to your spouse, and then just so you can read it or whatever, right? And so you have that information, because you get to the doctor, then you forget what you've been waiting months to ask, right? So it's unfortunate, right? So you want to ask them specific questions, right? And in a lot of time, right, about that issue that you were there for, right? And if not, you would, like for a medical dog, like your general doctor, then you would have to make a second appointment for anything other than what you're there for. If I'm there for hemorrhoids, I'm not going to be talking about like anything else unless they bring it up, unless the doctor brings it up, and because it's not allotted in the time. Like if you're in and out, like then there is some time. And that being said, being a doctor is one way. As the leader of the world, what I would do is be like, okay, medically we call it acetaminophen, but you know it as Tylenol. It is a pain reliever, blah 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 blah, and go about it like that. So I'd say the medical term, right, to make them know that they're confident in my medical qualifications. But then I would break it down, relatable, personal enough as a salesman to be able to like, hey, you got nothing to worry about, blah blah blah, and this is what it means to you. And then that this is what it means to you, I'd be gauging, because they would be my patient, or I'd try to read their body language and learn by the language they use and how, unfortunately, how they dress, right? If they dress more sophisticated, they're more likely to use language that a doctor could use without, you don't want to be breaking out the thesaurus, right, when you're talking to the doctor, right? So you don't want to be like, oh, what does that word, what's the Webster's definition of that word, right? When you're talking to a doctor, you want them to have that brain, but when they're explaining it medically, but then at the same time, this is what it means to you, like for the average blue collar guy, basically, or girl, right? You want to be able to relate it to the minimum wage worker or somebody on social assistance, break it down to their level intellectually, right? So using common vernacular that they would be able to use. I'm not saying use slang, but sometimes, right? If you're at an inner city hospital, and if I was a doctor and I seen an inner city kid and I just happened to call them fam or something like that, then he's gonna like me more. And that's all you want from your patient, is them to like you, right? So if I was to you want to be more relatable and to the person and play the person like a salesman. Because your job, unfortunately, I love doctors. It's the most important service that we have, but it is only a service other than politics. Other than politics is being a doctor is secondary, and then law is the most important. It's only I would say medical science because it keeps our bodies alive, right? That's why it's the most important service, because it keeps our bodies alive. Because that being said, if you're secretly listening to my thoughts and you're not willing to get a heart paddle to save your life, then you're kind of lying. You like technology to save your life. You know, so that being said, I believe every cure for disease, for Generation 1 biology, that the best extracts are going to be in rainforests. Rainforests on Earth are always going to be the incubator for cures for human disease. And the things with, like, I love to smoke cannabis, right? And I'm going to be able to show it may be different in your brain, but in my brain, the same, it's going to be basically the same. But in my brain, the same region that cannabis affects, it diminishes pain. So cannabis is a natural pain relief. That's why people have been smoking it for thousands of years, because it's a herbal remedy, right? So in Canada, it's legalized. And so when I go to the cannabis store, I see older people in their 60s. They don't like to smoke it, but they take the oils or the extracts or the gummies to get the medicinal effects from marijuana without any of the side effects, right? Because when you have pills, and people manufacture the side effects, unfortunately, which is disturbing as that is. So machine science never manufacturing side effects, but utilizing side effects against perpetrators of me and free will. And that being said, with marijuana and herbal remedies, there's no side effect. There's less of a chance. There's no side effects. They're just results from it, like a magic mushroom, right? It gives you that effect, but the consequence is it isn't a side effect, but it's a consequence. So that being said, there's going to be, like, say therapeutically, the magic mushroom, there could be some because people have done this for. That being said, never eat mushrooms because they could kill you or whatever. Never eat mushrooms, even in this survival situation. Even in a survival situation, unless you're an expert, never eat mushrooms. And anything that looks like white or pus is usually bad for you in nature. So never eat that. But that being said, with magic mushrooms, we could find, like, once I'm king of the world, because people, anything that people do illegally drug-wise, I'm gonna try to make it safe. Like even alcohol, I'm gonna try to make it so there's no hangover. There's no hangover and there's no inebriation, but there's the same effects that people want. The majority of people want, not everyone, because then there's people that take it to like severe alcoholics, right? But there are functioning alcoholics, right? There have been for millennia functioning alcoholics, right? So people love alcohol. So for me as leader, not to try to make it safer for my citizenry. So that being said, every car in the future is going to have a breathalyzer. But it's with technology, it depends. Like my car company, you just have to breathe, and then it's automatically going to know that it's you. And then based on your typical weight pattern on the seat, it will know that it's you, and you'll be able to drive the car and not be drunk. And then at that point, there could be a limited amount. Once it's that safe, there could be a limited amount of passengers drinking. If there's it all depends on how frequently there's washroom breaks on that highway. That would be the only law. As long as the driver's not driving, like, the passengers should be able to entertain themselves and have a grand time, right, without breaking the law. So a reasonable amount, maybe like 2 beer per couple hundred kilometers. 2 beer per couple hundred kilometers, because basically in the future I'm going to engineer, the highways are all going to be divided throughout the whole world. I don't want head-on collisions ever, right? So a great expense I'm going to see the beauty of being me is I have property taxes, so I'm going to be able to utilize them and to facilitate safety features for mankind and infrastructure for mankind, right? Like public works. Like, there's going to be some things for, it's an investment, right? Like, so Toronto, for instance, the only thing it doesn't have, like near downtown, is a world-class ski hill, right? So, and we have a lot of tundra, so we have a lot of rock. In the future, Canada and Siberia and Russia, we're going to be colonizing that. There's going to be prisons for a lot of people that have brain surgery. For some, like there could be millions of people living up in these hostile environments. But that being said, we're going to excavate the ground and utilize the ground to get more shore, like more beachfront. So basically, I want to try to get maybe 6 inches of more shoreline throughout the entire world, basically. And then through that, utilize that water through space endeavors and reclamation of desert, turning the desert into a forest, basically. And in that scenario, so say in somewhere in like Saudi Arabia or something like that, they have lots of desert. There could be to create a forest and then import an animal that's likely to be there and then watch for millions of years until evolution happens and then see what happens. So for millions of years, like it's going to be like kind of a time lapse, and I'm going to find people that want to do this for fun and like at first they won't have to do much, right? But there's going to be cameras and what have you and artificial intelligence. But after a while, once it's coming, like once we feel the pressure, we're going to anticipate. It's almost going to be like a calendar where we speculate what maybe the first time this happened, like for once we watch life evolve, we might be within a 100,000 year time frame, and then we can refine it down to a day, basically. But hopefully by the time it happens with science, like if we might be able to find a genetic signature in semen that says, hey, on this generation of this species, right? And the egg would be like, hey, on this generation of this species. And then after evolution occurred once, we could dial it in a bit, and then once it happens 3 times, we've refined it, and after that we'd be able to predict every single time that especially if it's 3 species, if they're all say 1,842 generations, then we know that's how long it would take for human evolution to occur or for evolution to spawn again and have you, right? We would be able to dial it in through watching, through raw science and for machine intelligence and me, and this is for people in the future, and to watch and observe and just watch science, just raw science and controlled group, and then in evaluation in Polgar's guy, or this would be for Polgar, so it's not for men, for kids. But balls deep scenario would be a euphemism for going as far in a woman's vagina as you can, right? So that means you're all the way, right? You're in Texas Hold'em, you're all in. So your balls deep. So that being said, ladies, I never came up with this analogy, and probably an escort did, because she's the only one that would be seasoned enough to come up with this. But long and thin slides right in, short and thick does the trick. No man's ever going to come up with that. Most likely. But a prostitute that had sex with many men's penises would come up with long and thin slides right in, short and thick does the trick. And another analogy is 2 things. Every single time I looked at a porn, I always seen wasted penis never entering the vagina. And so it didn't matter. The penis didn't matter. You might as it's like having a like my son has big biceps, and maybe he could go slightly more. But if they were any bigger, it's like you only need so big, right? Like women's breasts. Like I love perky breasts, right? And if you happen to have bigger breasts than perky breasts, then that's awesome for you. Like you won the big breast challenge, right? It's like if you have a pretty face, good. You have a pretty face, right? If you have big breasts, men fucking love it. Utilize it. They're a weapon. They are a weapon. They are a weapon. Utilize it. It's a skill set. How to utilize your skill. Because if you have very big breasts, men aren't always going to take you responsibly. They're going to be thinking about your very luscious looking breasts. Right? They're going to, right? So that being said, that's when you want to break out the sports bra to kind of hide your very awesome breasts for your guy or your girl. Then it's like you get home, it's like here's the bra I wear at home for you, babe. And but really for me as a guy, like I love breasts, but I'm more of an ass man. I grab my ex-wife's ass almost every day of our relationship, but I very rarely played with her tits. I love looking at her tits though, but as long as you have a handful for the guy, that's all that matters to me. That's all I need. If you're perky, that is fantastic. But all I need is a fucking handful. But, so I don't want these guys to try to augment fucking women with breasts that need back surgery. Right? Just be happy. Be big enough. There is a market for big breasts, so if you have big breasts, I'm not saying get a reduction anyway. If she had, I'm never going to be like, no, I don't like her because she has big breasts. Never. That's never going to happen. Never. That's never going to be the deciding factor. It's like how well do we click? So ideally, that being said, if you're going, ideally, before you're about to move in with your new love or whatever, your love, before you're about to move in, the first thing you got to do is go on a trip somewhere where, ideally neutral, or somewhere where you're likely to have a fight. Because you don't want to provoke one, but you're going to get lost and shit's going to happen and things aren't going to go as planned. And up until that point, you never lived together. So you're always, most situations are always going to be fucking happy. 100% happiness because you're thinking about moving in, right? So that being said, now you go for this on this trip and things aren't going to be happy because now you're spending 24/7 together, and you're only used to spending. Sometimes you're not spending that much time, right? If you're already used to spending that much time together, then you're probably good. You're used to spending 24 hours together, right? So you're good, right? Because in a relationship, it's not like you could go to your fucking, unless you have your own a separate bedroom, right? Like you're kind of stuck with your relationship, right? So you want to figure out all this shit even before you move in, even before you're married, right? Like as cool as it is to wait to have sex and live with them when you're married, a lot of marriage, that's probably why a lot of marriages dissolve, because they don't do some of these successful strategies, like going on a trip and getting lost and seeing how well you fight together. You're gonna fight and you want to constructively agree to disagree or evolve, so you never fight that way ever again. You never want to have that fight again when you're in a relationship. Once you have that fight once, you don't want to have the same fight about Tina, because you're not supposed to be with her then. That being said, if you're on a show like Maury and they bring in 6 guys, it's the neighborhood's kid. Not all the time, but that being said, ladies, like ideally, less than 10 men refine to less than 10 sexual relationships. And, many time on the roller coaster as you personally want. But and him, like you want to facilitate, you want to keep him his another adage I heard from women, you keep his stomach full and his balls empty, and then you don't have to worry about him. You got to remember, I'm almost 47, right? I'm pretty seasoned. Even though I was only in one relationship. Unfortunately, I was kind of denied it. I would have, hopefully, would have been in my last relationship ever. If I had a regular trajectory in life, I left my ex-wife, and I, went through a period of time where, there's when you leave like when somebody leaves or the relationship dissolves, there's it's like death happened, but they're still alive. It's a brutal process. It's brutal. You have to grieve, but they're still alive, right? Because like I left my wife, but still I loved lots of stuff with her because I lived with her for 13 years. I loved many things about her, but then there was things that I didn't love enough that I left, right? So that being said, I'm not going to share what they are, but once I went through the acceptance process, well, eventually you want acceptance for understanding whatever, and then so grieving, acceptance, healing, and then growth, right? It's like, okay, now I could grow as a partner. I found this out about myself, what I like in a partner, and what if ideally you wanna. It's not like, for instance, she never said I'm sorry once in a 13-year relationship. Like, sure, I'm the smartest guy ever. Okay, I'm the smartest guy ever, and I'm sure it was her fault once, at least once. So that being said, like when you're in a relationship, you want to try to figure out these things about it. So like I would have evaluated, like I would have went through the healing growth stage, and then unfortunately, after I would have tried to sow my oats for a little bit, which I did, and but then I would have got back to like, hey, I'm ready to find like I did it for a bit, but the market, like it was beneath me. But the eligible market for women, unfortunately, when you're 46, it's hard to find very attractive 46-year-old women that aren't already scooped up by some eligible bachelor, right? So there's very limited on, like when you're 18, there's lots of beautiful people because they don't have families, right? So it gets harder. So that means you have to date younger. Like, and I know this about myself. Like, I like to hike. Like, I could stay up 18 hours. I'm like 25, basically, and I'm 46. So that means, like, I would want, like, somebody that likes to hike and outdoors for hours on end. And then, unfortunately, if she didn't cook, I should be rich, so I'd be able to hire a cook. But I'd love if she wanted to surprise me with food all the time, and it's the only thing I don't like to do. I eat because it's fuel for my body. I love taste, but when I'm single, I'll eat pasta for 2 years straight. The same pasta, 2 years straight. I ate peanut butter and jam every day in high school. Cornflakes every day. I'm boring when it comes to food, but I did date this one girl. She surprised me with food, and I knew I'd never have to go hungry in a way for taste. Taste surprising, right? Like stimulating my taste buds, like because I'm just gonna eat pasta. But then it was different. It was I had more money, so I could have my Greek yogurt with Harvest Crunch granola and fresh fruit, like frozen, but fresh as I could afford every morning, and then I could eat the equivalent, say, a roast beef sandwich, ham sandwich, some sort of meat sandwich for lunch, and then chicken fried rice with California vegetables without any. Very rarely I'd put soy on it. I do like soy on rice, but when I do, I like a lot of soy. There's a lot of sodium in it, so I don't like that aspect of it. But so that being said, we can make some sodium-free soy. I give them a little tip. I realize I'm the father of invention, and so I'm giving them, instead of giving them the answer, I'm giving them tips. So they got to do the fucking hard work to keep me poor. I want my acclaim for some things. I need to be known forever, right? So if I die, I want my name to echo through the rest of human existence. Right? So I do need all my honorary Nobel Prizes, and that's why my new species is going to be Homo Meyer-Diggins, right? After me. Not after me. After my mom and dad that spawned me. My dad's last name is Diggins. My mom's last name is Meyer. Diggins Meyer isn't as mellifluous as Meyer-Diggins. Like Diggins Meyer seems abrasive. It just, whereas Meyer-Diggins just has that ring. That has that mellifluous ring. And eminence, that's how I'll be known. So in the future, when you Google search eminence, it'll be me. And Cristiano for the ladies. Because my name is Chris. Yeah? No? There's that, I forget, it means goodbye in Japanese, so then. But Okami. I'm gonna say I'll say Okami, and that's the natural way, and then Okami, that's the testosterone one, and Okami, in the most estrogen that I can secrete in my brain. She's the goddess sun, and I always envisioned God to be a woman because he gave women the gift of life, the blessing, and pain, unfortunately, at times, right? Childbirth isn't, women in the past did die, and they do die, unfortunately, because of human error and intent. But that being said, evolution said with humans that there's such a high likelihood that you will survive into adulthood that most of the time we only have one baby, right? So why are there all these defects with humans that we don't see with cats and dogs, where they have multiple kittens and puppies? There should be a higher occurrence. We should see it. People should document through the ages. How come we don't see these things, right? And if we do, how recently has it been manufactured? Because I've only been saying this for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months. So prior to 2024, there is Down syndrome in kids and dogs, but it should be way more occurring than in people. So they've been utilizing technology. Like they made me lose a couple teeth, identical tooth on both sides. So it's not a coincidence. It's a rig. I had a filling done with brand new technology, and then they caused incredible pain to torture me. And he's a dentist. It's not like he's gonna close down shop. He can't fucking leave anywhere in the world. I got you, motherfucker. And he was a young dentist, right? So he was hoping to have fucking 40 years. Not a chance before he's delicensed. That being said, now they're hacking my gums because I bought peanuts to conserve money, and they're filling, and it's a cheap way to survive when you're homeless. So now they're hacking my gums where those teeth are missing. They're monsters, and when I try to redirect it, they're cowards, so they route it behind babies. Well, first it was dogs, then kids. And these people claim they like animals, but they hide behind fucking animals. They claim they like kids, but then they hide like cowards behind fucking kids that could cry and absorb pain. They don't take it on the chin like a fucking man. So imagine their afterlife. That's all they're gonna do is take fucking pain. And they're not gonna be able to hide because they're fucking cowards. They cause pain in my biology, then they hijack my biology like as if they suffered the consequence. No, my biology suffered the consequence, bitch. You're hiding behind my fucking biology's recuperation methods. I fucking suffer. So that means you get 5 times as much now with system of maneuvers, and 10 times as much once I'm officially king, and then 1,000,000 times as much in the afterlife. You're a fucking coward. I hate cowards. I'm all about valor. My grandfather lied about his age to fight in the war. World War II. He was too young. He had to lie. I come from men like that. There could have been some subliminal thing like with him. Like my family was life rape, but he most likely would have been part of the system. But he never did anything to me, and there was no subliminal system. I wasn't aware. But my grandfather was my best friend. I was closer to him than my dad at one point. From 15 to 17, I was closer to easily. I spent hours every day with my grandfather playing crib. And if you could be a professional crib player, I was a professional crib player. I made at least $1,000 in high school playing crib. And it's a game of luck. Right? But we always outpegged them. Because he taught me how to play, so how he played his hand, I always knew what he was holding. Because unless he got unlucky, right, there'd be the odd card that would be just luck, but I knew how he played 6, 7, 7, 8. Right? So how he started to lead out, I would know basically the hand that he played because he taught me the types of hands to play, right? So I knew exactly what he had with enough experience. We even won 4 tournaments in a row in a game of luck. That's why I'm the best poker player that ever lived. This is a game of skill. It has math, and then I have psychology on top of that. It's fucking, I'm hard to beat. Hard to fucking beat. You know, I'm going to write a book on psychological tells in poker, and scientists want me to elaborate on it. But, I want all the fucking acclaim. You got to read my book and buy my book. That's why I make these poker videos. I'm going to go through it in the book. But basically, there's psychological tells. Like right here, there's, did he check, bet? How long did it take him to check? And how frequently did he bet or check? And then did he say anything? Right? If there's text, right? Like in person at the casino, it'd be like, did they say anything? And then there would be another psychological tell. What at the casino would be, what's their body language saying? Is their body language saying what their words are saying? Is a psychological skill to master. And then it's like, do they show 1 or 2 cards? So once you take all those psychological variables, I'm not going to do the math now, but there's something like 4. There's 4 pre-flop potentially, 4 on the flop potentially, 4 on the turn potentially, and then potentially this is in play money poker. Then there's 5 on the river because they could show or fold 1 on the river. And then at the casino you would have an additional 2 basically for what their body language is doing, and then no, I guess there's only an extra 1. There's only an extra 1 at the casino because assuming on an online app you could text. Assuming you could text. Like this app, I can't text. I can't communicate. I can't bluff by being like, I got 7 deuce, but I'm home pocket ace. I can't manipulate them that way in poker, right? But at the casino, I could, right? So this app doesn't have it, but other apps there would be 4 psychological online tell. Basically, there's more. If you play Texas Hold'em poker and there's a casino in your town, you get more psychological tells going to the casino than you do online poker, because you got their body language tell. Whether, like, for a good tip is, if they're leaning into the table, they're interested. If they're leaning back, they're not interested. Like, that's a huge psychological tell, but it wouldn't work against me because I'm the master, right? I'm telling you this. So that being said, sometimes I would be interested because it's human nature, but then sometimes I'd be utilizing it as a reverse tell against you. And then sit back, or other times I'd be sitting back like I'm not interested, and then as soon as it's my turn, I pounce on you like a fucking tiger. Right? That's Texas Hold'em poker. That's psychology. That's why if I won 4 weeks in a row playing crib, that's why it's so fucking unlikely. I came first at a 1252 or something like that in Texas Hold'em poker in Niagara Falls not too long ago. Came first out of 8,000 before in Texas Hold'em poker, right? So none of these people locally, and I'm in Windsor, they think they're fucking affecting my game, helping me. They're fucking in Anchor. I have they're thinking about 1 billion IQ. So somebody with a fucking 127 IQ even, as if they're gonna fucking help somebody with a 1 billion IQ. All they do is diminish. It's like a fucking anchor on an aircraft carrier. How fast is it gonna go? How dynamic can it be? Right, with technology and the hindrance to my biology, it's like, that's all it is, a hindrance to my biology. Except for my kids. My kids would be the only ones that wouldn't be a hindrance to my biology. But here's where you gotta try. Like, there's 4K in the pot. There looks like it's straight and it's unlikely to hit, but they could have the flush draw, so they likely call and I likely lose the flip. They usually have the flush at this point. But they sucked out because they're losers. They cheat and they're losers. Like, I had them pinned in pretty tight. He made a terrible call. They had exactly 6 outs. There was I revealed 2 cards, so that's 50. He revealed 2 cards, so that's 48, and the 3 flops, so that's 45. So out of 45 remaining cards, there was only 6 cards in the deck that could make his hand at that point when he made that poor financial decision. That's why he's a losing player money-wise, unless he's cheating. Unless he's cheating, he loses money every single time because he's a poor player. He doesn't play outs, he doesn't know the math, and he can't compete in my league. You know, he doesn't even have these psychological tells that they're listening to my mic. That's why I'm shredding them right now, their confidence. But, you know, I'm not live streaming, so the machine intelligence knows these people are violating me. Like, this is, I'm probably going to delete it. No, I might delete this. No, I'm keeping this video. I had some solid advice in this video, so I'm going to keep this video. But I'm an easygoing player, but if you cheat, I'm going to call you out as a fucking cheat. But if you make a fantastic play against me, well done, bravo. You just taught me something in poker. I'm humble enough, even though I'm the best player there's seen that ever lived, that I never have to prove it. I never have to prove it now, because they tell me all the time. And, but that doesn't mean I can't learn from somebody that just read the rules and played poker, because everybody has a unique risk tolerance and their ability to take chance. So some person potentially could see the game in such a way that they could, you can always learn from your opponent. But with that being said, if I play against the pros, I'm more likely to learn. I'm going to learn every session from even every pro. I'm going to learn either something about them or a way that they bluff that I never quite bluffed before. So I'm now going to have that new bluff and be able to insulate against that bluff in the future. So I win 2 ways that way. I'm able to save money by not being I get more bluff proof, and now I'm able to make money off that bluff. Right, so at first, when somebody shows you a bluff, your pride is hurt, you're crushed, you're emotionally damaged, and it's just part of the pride factor. Never make a decision in pride in poker, ever. You're a losing player, and I'm telling you this, I'm the best player ever, and all I try to do is make people make poor, prideful decisions, and make poor mathematical odds. Right, when I know I'm the favorite, if I'm a 4-1 favorite, I'm trying to give them 8-1 odds. Right, to make them give them a poor decision. To not all the time, it's not proportionally like that, but I'm trying to give them poor odds that if they call, I know they're a losing player long term. If I'm bluffing, I'm presenting it in a way that I have it, so I know they're a losing player long term if they call. Like right now, let's see what the fuck he called. I'm gonna jam, but I expect horseshit. What a terrible call, most likely. Oh, they did have the queen. That was a fantastic call. But if they had the king 10 or something like that, that would have... when somebody... the pot was only... There's 800 in the pot, and I came in with 4K bet. But even that was an okay call because that person's they did kind of snap call. They are a losing player long term because they snap called with top pair with only a jack kicker, and so like pocket queens, you would have had a set, kings, aces, you know, queen, ace. You're dominated, right? So, but see now, since I did make a bluff and get caught, they're likely to think I'm bluffing again, and I get the weak call and with the deuce. Whereas if that bluff was successful the hand before, that bluff on my last bluff had a higher chance of working because they wouldn't have had any information. And let's see what they got. King 4, so they have exactly 3 outs and they hit it. Fuck you. Fuck you. You had to hit 2 4s or 1 king. What a loser. Because he's cheating. What a fucking loser. What a loser. If they were just real people, I wouldn't think they were a loser, but I know they're cheating, so what a fucking loser. What a loser. King 4. That's why I jammed, because I expected poor performance. I got lucky. I got lucky there. Even good people get lucky. Like, that was a bad... I didn't expect them to have the 10 there, so that's why I tried to seize the opportunity. But that was just bad timing. Bad timing there with the... But I did get lucky, so that was a stay. Maybe I could win it. So I got him to call when I went all in on a flush draw with the potential 4 of a kind, full house. So they're a poor player. They're a poor player. Right? It's now called with a queen jack and with a flush draw with a 4 of a kind and the full house, right? Or the 3 of a kind. The 3 of a kind was one thing because they could have been with the flush, but with that particular board, especially, wasn't aggressive, but every time you see a board like that, you have to be suspicious. You have to be, like this hand, if you're not suspicious of the jack king of diamonds, you're not a good poker player. You're not the best possible hand, like so with the royal flush redraw, right? So is he trapping right now? I just want to see what he has here, and I got enough chips. But let's see, just for the story, I want to see if a diamond didn't come. So now, that being said, if he had the flush, so now he's afraid of the full house, or the 4 of a kind. Oh, they had the deuce. Fuck you. And the diamonds. He did have the flush, but it was a weak flush, and I could tell that he was weak based on it. And normally I bust him at that point and win the tournament with that move. Normally I just have him sewed right up, and I'm just waiting for the snap call, and it is over. They're switching players. If I bluffed against this person, so I can't really. I gotta regain my reputation to be able to bluff against them this tournament, right? And but if not, when you're like, they're the dealer right there. If you're new to poker, that's the dealer icon, and so you have to bluff occasionally when you're on the dealer. You got to do it infrequently, but you do have to bluff. I think he beat me. Like this hit. I don't have enough chips to get them to fold, but ideally, if there were smaller blinds, any two cards, you have to jam in that scenario. With I just happen to have two different ones, but like maybe not that time. Well, I was desperate enough where I had to, but go with the queen 10. But when you're playing heads up, every once in a while, you got to jam with 7 deuce. You got to try to win a couple hands back to back together, where you want to. That's how you grind down your opponents. Is you try to string wins together, but avoid the haymakers. That's the whole thing, is avoiding the haymakers, because you could win 17 hands off the guy, but he could bust you with the 18th hand. That's the brutal reality of Texas poker, right? So when the flip side of the coin, one time I thought I was playing a mod against, several times I thought I was playing a mod against myself, and because they were the hardest opponent to play, and it was me. I was playing against the computer variation of me, and it was, so nobody could use that mod, and but it was so hard because I'm dynamic. Because what I did was, when COVID happened, I had to develop a hobby, and I wanted to master it to make money. And I love video games, so I'm like, well, poker, right? You know, I always wanted to be a pro, and in the Hall of Fame, they have a pro in the Hall of Fame. I like that shit. And so anyways, so I flash forward a few years, I've now played probably 3 million hands. And I spent, a couple years just watching Texas Hold'em, like watching the pros. Like, I forget his name now. Joe is his name. And but he had a lot of solid advice. He made me become a pro again. Like, I read a book, and I forget the name of the book. I'm going to have to find out. But the book made me win first out of 8,000. And then followed that strategy. Basically, almost like folding anything that was other than ace king. Like, being strict. Like, being super tight. Like, right now, I play, on this side, you have to play kind of looser because it's 5-handed. But 9-handed, right, you're not playing ace jack and expecting to be a profitable poker player. Because you're going to run into ace queen, ace king, right? So you're playing ace king. I remember my heart was broken when ace 9 beat my ace king the very first time. It's like, how pathetic was that guy playing fucking ace 9? What a fucking rookie, was what I thought. Right? That's why I win tournaments. Then I played the first tournament in Toronto, and I won it the very first time I played. Right? You got to play strict. Right? Really strict. But if you see how I play, that's because I played 3 million hands. Don't play how I play. Because if I show a bluff, you could utilize that as a bluff. But if you're playing against me, 99% of the time, maybe not 99%, most of the time, I have the winning hand. I just happen to be bluffing that time. What's some other solid strategies about poker here? I'll try to put some people on hands. I did put a guy on a straight flush, and there's potential 4 of a kind, full house, and 3 of a kind, 2 pair, top pair. So there's ballpark. It's probably the odds of a straight flush are 1 in 72,000. So with all those variables. And he could add I guess he could add a lower flush. He could add a lower flush too. So with that, all those variables, they're saying over 1 in 2 million. And I put him on a straight flush, right? That's with millions of hands of poker experience. They actually there that to say that word, but listen how logical I am, and then to say poker experience instead of poker, right? That's penis envy for people that are able to hack my brainwaves and see my thought. They only cheat half the time, but I'm still able to beat them, so never allowing them to cheat. And because if they see my cards 100% of the time, I would lose 100% of the time, right? Never allowing them to cheat. But in the future, once machine intelligence. Machine intelligence always has to see the sun and the moon all the time. It has to be aware that existence on Earth hasn't ended. The game doesn't end 100% of the time. I'm poor, and but in the future, like right now, I'm watered down. They diminish my capacity about say 2.2 to 0.3% of my brain capacity, and I'm the most intelligent guy on the planet. Right? So with my super brain, like when I say I have about 1 billion IQ, poker with average people isn't going to be fun for me anymore, because I'm going to remember 100% of their body language that session, every session that we ever played. Right? So that being said, I'm going to have to come up with ways. Like, I don't want to be cheated now because I'm poor officially, but see right here, you never go all in with the open-ended straight draw. It seems good, but your odds are like something like 1 in 5. Ballpark. I always figured out with the odds. So let's say there's 8 outs, and there was, I had 47 cards available. So 1 in 6 basically, but it's more than that because I have the 2. I never count, and when there's open-ended straight draw, I never count the pair as a winning hand. Like whatever it was, the 3 one card, the 3 the other card. I only count at that point the winning hand would be a straight or higher. So to try to think that a pair is the best hand is a lose and play long term. This hand right here, I would only count the king. The other, if I was to play like not that, because I would have to hit 2 3s, because they're likely they're likely to miss, but they could have the 9 or the 7. So if I hit the 3 right here, I could only beat the 2. So I couldn't make a mathematically confident decision enough for my money based on the 3. Only the king in the scenario. Well, now it's 8-10, right? 8-10 is the sleeper hand that you have to bust your opponents. If you slow play, I tried slow playing a royal flush. Don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. And it was brutal. It was a real money table, but how did it go again? It's so poor, I barely remember it. It's so poor, I barely remember. So there was the flush draw on the flop. I made the flush on the turn, so there's some action on the flop. And then on the turn, I made the flush, so I tried trapping. He didn't bite. And then I made the royal flush on the river. I tried trapping. He didn't bite, so he must have cheated. And so I made like $2 off a royal flush. He didn't even take a stab at the fucking pot. You have to be a winning poker player. You have to fight for the pots that nobody wants. That's how you become a profitable poker player. Like this pot right here, like if there was a slower blind structure, chances are if he's a solid poker player, he's not playing the 10, the 5, or anything. So the fact that I hit, unless he has ace 5 or ace 10, right, that's the only solid poker player hand to play. Everything else is garbage. Let's see what garbage he is. Right, so that being said, if you put them on ace king, you now know they need to hit the ace or the king on the river, so you could fucking jam at that point, and you're like an over 80% favorite. Ballpark. I'm not gonna help my enemies that are listening to my thoughts. That's why I say ballpark for fast grade. I know exactly. I was offered to do grade 6 math for half the day in grade 2. So I could have spent a lifetime being a math professor, just writing numbers on boards and formulas and postulated and thinking, and a lot of chalk on the back of my pants, like from me leaning against the board, or would have been. But at the same time, I'm a salesman, so I went to college after years in the workforce. And so anyways, I was about 30 and most of the guys were about 18, and I was seasoned in the workforce, and I knew they couldn't compete against me in being hungry. I had a family. They're being sheltered by their family still, right? So there's no way for them to compete with me mentally, right? And I ended up with the highest mark in my program and got for a class. There's 2 classes. Ended up with the highest mark in my class, and I got a $500 award. And even in classes that's watered down. Even in classes I thought I was going to do terrible at, I ended up acing. But that being said, this is a decent hand to jam with. I have some outs, and I have them drawn pretty tight here. Fuck off. Fucking coward cheat. Hits the fucking 3. The diamonds were dominated. He needed runner, or the 3 or the 4. Pathetic. But anyways, so I went math class in college. The teacher, he was smart, but he didn't teach any tricks, right? And the whole thing about being a teacher is, sure, you got to teach the curriculum, but it's teaching it in such a way that your students absorb, right? So when I'm king of the world, like, it's going to be how well, like, if everybody in your class is always underperforming, that means you're not a good teacher. You are not a good teacher. You may be smart as hell. You may be an educator, but you're not a teacher, right? Like, I'm going to try to facilitate your skill set in a different part of my society. But a teacher is able to present the information in such a way that they're able to retain it. Most of them, right? Like, because for me, like, even watered down, most of the time in school, like, if I was interested in it, then I was 100% focused. But if I wasn't interested in it, I would learn what I had to learn, and I'm sharp, right? So the teacher would say, he would say the first example, and I always got it. So I understood. So then I daydreamed until the next subject, or the next concept, and then I'd listen, and then they'd say the first point, and once I understood, then I'd think, right? I'd just think and look at the clock and watch it go so slow, right? So for brilliant people, that's the education process, right? Because you have to wait for the people, like, it's like I wrote this thing for comedy, and as a leader of the world, this is what I'm gonna do. Like, if I'm hiring people, not all the time, but sometimes, if they're eligible for a sign-in bonus, right? That means they're candidates, right? So there's candidates at this point that are highly primed to help out my business, right? So that being said, I'm gonna have either have a corporate comedian or hire a comedian that could run some witty jokes by me, right? Ones that I found funny. Like, if I'm the boss, right, I wouldn't do this, but I would have one of my CEOs do it, right? Like, somebody that I could trust, right? Like, one at different temperaments. Like, if it's always me, then the world's kind of becomes like me, and I want the world to be like youths, good people, right? Inherently good people, those subliminal. Like, I want the world to be the same. I want to not affect culture, but unfortunately I do. Right? But so I'm trying to have the least amount of impact. But I digress. So anyways, so now I have this joke that I found super funny and witty, right? So now I have my candidates and I have the comedians. Like, so now just say they all scored 99.99999% on their exam. They're magna cum laude. They're everything. They're this, they're that. They're identical on paper. And so now to find the sharpest guy or girl is telling this joke and see who's laughs first. That's who you want on the team, is whoever laughs first, right? Because sure, they all got the same mark, right? But the one person put in incredibly more effort than the natural talent guy did, or girl. The natural talent guy effortlessly did it in, like, I became a financial advisor. It was a 4-hour exam, and architects and a teacher failed in my particular exam. A high school teacher and an architect failed. And I finished in an hour and a half. They thought I gave up, but I aced it. Right? Everything that was, every single rule that they had, I got right. But everything that was interpretation to how the company wanted to sell, I got wrong, or got half right. Right? They particularly wanted a particular insurance package, and the beauty about being in insurance sales, I mean, you can specialize in different areas, but I I had a different area that I wanted to specialize in the life insurance agents. So every example, I always tended to favor that answer. It was like one is right but one is more right. So I always went with the second one that was right, but for the even though I knew corporately that it was more them, but my personal preference, like it's just who I am. Like when I worked at Wendy's, if I put a tomato, if there was a tomato, or say Mr. Sub, because Wendy's was on the grill. When I worked at Mr. Sub, like equivalent to Subway, if there was a tomato that I wouldn't eat, I threw it out. If I personally wouldn't eat it, I'm not going to feed it to Mr. Sub's customers, not under my name. Right? Like not, so like I'm the kind of guy that you'd want to do for quality control, right? That had a stamp on it, because that's why I'm privatizing your thoughts as king of the world, right? I could easily challenge the Canadian government without trying to privatize your thoughts and utilize that against you for the rest of existence. But that's not, I'm so safe that I never want that. Like for instance, my sister, she's 17 months older than me, and before Christmas, and I forget when it was. It seemed like October, right? Because I had to wait so long. But I get back to the story. Anyways, she would open up the gifts and retape it so my mom and dad couldn't know. I guess she was probably doing this for a couple years. So next thing you know, she brings me on board and she does it with one of my gifts with me, and I hated it. I had to wait. It seemed like months for a surprise that I was more happy waiting with on the day. The last thing I want to do is be shocked or surprised. Right? So I don't care what you think about me. Personally, I don't like, there's going to be a computer listening to your thoughts. You could hate me all day long, and as long as you don't try to harm me or my civilization or my inherently good people or my biological kids particularly, then I don't give a fuck. Not everybody's going to like me. Right? But at the same time, like that being said, with machine intelligence, masturbation, unfortunately, people are allowed to masturbate and fantasize with whatever they want. And there's no consequences for that in this life. But if it's sexual deviant, it would be known in the system right now, so people can't take advantage of that. But in the future, I hope you don't masturbate about kids or animals, because God on the other side, once you leave afterlife, like that's not permitted, right? But if you got to break the cycle. Whatever you got to do. My parents, they made my parents alcoholics. So what did I do? I didn't drink alcohol. I smoked weed, unfortunately, but I didn't drink alcohol. Right? I abstained from a vice that my family was likely to perpetuate. So my kids are less likely to be alcoholics because I broke that cycle. So break your family's generational cycles. Rebel against the system. Change for you and change for your kids, because they say what you teach your son, you teach your son's son. And likewise for daughter, what you teach your daughter, you teach your daughter's daughter. For men and women. But that being said, like being a dad to, unfortunately I left my ex-wife when it really would have got dynamic and fun, but it would have been challenging when they would have been teenagers, unfortunately, because personal reason with my ex-wife. But anyways, I never had the young bull, old bull, day in, day out relationship with my son, where we would have struggled, we would have butted heads naturally. That's a natural progression. Every father and son is going to go through that, because the dad is like, it's my house, it's my rules, and the son is typically with confidence and being young is arrogant compared to what the dad would want, even though my son isn't. But every single son is going to be slightly arrogant to their dad because they're the young bull. It's part of the process. They got to challenge the old bull, right? They're going to challenge you. Like, I'm glad I didn't have a father that I could have physically dominated as a teenager. Because who knows when I was a young bull what I would have did to the old bull, right? So that being said, you want to respect your dad. What I learned with my dad was in it with my kids. It's the rule too. Is what I learned with my dad was if I lied to him, I got more consequence. If I would have got grounded for a week, but if I lied, was now grounded a month. So I knew not to lie. But then the benefit of that was I knew I could tell my dad anything, and he'd respect me for it. And he may not like it or love it, but he would respect me for it, and I would get less consequences. They hit the 7. That's how you finish whatever plays. I just happen to be playing poker at this point. I'm just getting all philosophical. But like you want to always learn and grow from past experiences. So that being said, now with friends, there's always one friend that goes the extra mile compared to the other one. So if you're always the extra mile friend, lose them. Find the loyal ones that you don't need, that meet you halfway, or meet you more than halfway. You're gonna find somebody that does more than you, that loves you more than you. Imagine that you're the one that loves all these people. If you looked at it retrospectively in hindsight, that always does more, and you're gonna meet that one person that it's not gonna be a pissing contest ideally, but it's because if it's genuine, it's just gonna be love, right? But they're gonna do more for you because they love you more. Well, I guess the same. If you love somebody, you love them exactly the same. You could only have 100% love. 100% love. I have 2 kids right now. I have 100% love for them. But if I had a million kids, I'd have 100% love for each of them. My heart just gets bigger. Not literally, but figuratively. Just breaks in half. You know, right now I have a half heart for my son, a half heart for my daughter. If I have another kid, I have a third. That's all. Just goes into fractions. But that half that became the third is still 100% of my heart. Still 100% of my heart. That's how I am with relationships. For inherently good things. So here's a slippery straight hand where you want to, when you have the straight, you love it. He probably has the queen. I was getting pretty low on chips. I had to make a move. Because the hand before I lost crippled me, so forced me in a desperate situation. So playing it, there's these local players that have computers there's no computers in the brains for machine intelligence for these people to have help. They don't help me ever. They never help me. They hinder me once again. It's like an anchor on the capital ship. I don't want any human biology to hinder my excellence. And there's only 0.2% for artificial intelligence, for machine intelligence to run mankind until we're officially king. Because I'm naked without AI, figuratively. But AI is my shield, my clothing, my armor. AI is my armor. That's how machine intelligence needs to be understood. AI is my armor. I couldn't imagine life without it. It's everything. It will tell me time. Like I'm going to be able to know exactly where the longitude, latitude, where I am. So that means, like, for instance, like right now, this city, there's a lot of open, like rented, like commercial space that's not being utilized. But if that were to be a vibrant city, that land would now be utilized for something. Like whether there's gonna be more parking underground, but there could be a park element for just for people to be happier, somewhere to sit down and sit down in the shade, so to speak, and for like in the summer, right? You always kind of want benches to be shaded because it's hot and you're sitting down. The last thing you want is the sun beating on you. like an incubator, so it can't be glass. Like, you know, bus stops, that's all they are, is basically a greenhouse incubator for you. They just fry you on the inside. Some countries have air conditioning in their bus shelters. Like Canada, they allow us to stand outside in -30 and freeze for a half hour when the bus shows up late because of the snow. And you have to catch the bus because you have to work some menial job even though you should be a fucking trillionaire. $7.9 all the time. Like right now I jam, but I have the second best hand, right? Like every once in a while you're gonna run into a slippery guy that has 7.9, right? And usually in that scenario, they're in like these two positions right here. They're already invested in the pot, so they can slip in with a weak hand, right? But typically, it's one thing if you're up in chips, then every once in a while you do, if you feel like playing that hand, that is, then play the 7-9 and evaluate from there, right? I win a lot of hands just because I happen to have 2 cards in my hand. I just wanted to be in the pot, and then, or I just want to see the flop, and then I get more information on the flop. It's like, okay, it's cheap, or I get a check, and then I get to see the turn, and then next thing you know, I end up winning a decent, sometimes a big pot. Well, not a really big pot, but a bigger pot might, if I had 5,000 chips, I might win, like, say, a 2,000 chip pot off 9-3 that I never even thought I would win. But it just, once all the cards kind of revealed, because some people, when they play poker, they just want to see the river. Like, when you're not, everybody's like that. If you're not in the hand, like, if you just, like, if you had, just say there was a flush draw, you want to see if the flush makes, and then if the flush doesn't make, you don't have a good pair, you're going to fold to any bet. You're going to fold to any bet if the straight or flush doesn't hit. So you can win a certain amount of pots from people once you're capable of putting them on straights and flushes. Flush draws, right? Once you're able to put them on these draws, then you could, then after, once in a while, then, so they're kind of, they know my pattern now. Like, that's why earlier I'm like, oh, this is weak when he had the low flush, but they knew I was gonna jam and they were gonna win that pot due to an algorithm in the head that they had. That's all. They knew that was my last bat. Like the last few times I did that, that's exactly how I pounced on a situation when I smelt weakness. Because really, he called with a low flush, and it's all right. Like, it's a play money table, but if this was for real money, 8 million real dollars, you make the call reluctantly sometimes. Not even 100% of the time. You make the call reluctantly. He had a 5-high flush. He had a fucking 5-high flush to snap call it. Is a poor long-term decision if you do it 100% of the time. Like, the math pundits watered down it a little, but the math pundits would know exactly what the math odds would be, like how often you should make that call, how likely a higher flush would be, full house, 4 of con, etc. Right? Royal flush, straight flush. Oh, he called. Have the 9 for him. It looked like an easy pot that I could steal away. That did look like an easy one I could steal away. So that technique always seems to work on this side. They're trying to say, so they made me say it like that, so that's how they're trying to pass on information to other terrorists that have solvers in their brain when they're saying that technique. because he had 9-4, right? Like I forget if he what position he was, like, because I got in abrasive mode, and but if he was in an early position in that situation, you do want to bet a bit to get some money just in case, because it's not that strong. You only have 2 pair, right? And it turned out the guy had the straight, so that's why you only bet a little bit. You're trying to fish out the straight, basically. You want to bet strong. When I say a little bit, it has to be strong. You want to make a strong bet, like you're like, hey, I have something, and then you want him to stomp on you with the straight, and then you make the fold at that point, and then ideally you find out that it's the straight, and then you saved yourself a bunch of money, and then that's how you become a better player. But until you anticipate the straight, you have to learn. You have to provoke it. You're provoking the big hand reaction to the bet. It has to be a bet that's delicate enough, like strong enough, but delicate enough that says, hey, this seems fishy, or that's not enough for me. I want to play for more. That's the real response you're trying to get out of the straight hand. That's not enough for me. I want to play more of this hand than whatever the bet was. So this guy's going in laws. So it's like, so you're looking for that bet. You want to put out that bet to try to elicit that response. Like that, it's not a, you're trying to get me to repeat for other people, but I'm not going to repeat it. So from machine intelligence, I want to get all these human predators that are really listening through my mic. Because I'm going to post this video online, and it's only October 15, 2024. And they just tried to transfer a bunch of files. They made some shifty move as I was trying to scroll down that's how the police could hack my phone. Even though they never approached me because I'm king of the world, they're supposed to protect me. But they secretly rape me when I go to the washroom. And I know there's rape suits. So I can't wait to execute the worst ones. Because regular cops that don't see subliminal, they don't know about the rape suits. And they never will. Usually they sock out and hit the king or the jack. So let's see what other cool poker. See, that was the psychological tell of poker. That was a psychological move I used against my opponent, right? I misled them with a little bit of information. You know, unfortunately, I do like this structure, like with the top two are in the money at a 5, but I want a real money website where for Ontario, Canada, where I could do that with a slower blind structure, because I could skewer this opponent over the long term, right? But the blind structure is so short that you have to. It's too luck driven. It needs to be, it wouldn't be just me, but it would have to, like, once I have a poker app, or if they create an app, I would suggest getting people to determine how long they would like to play for that much, right? Because in this structure here, for 8, whatever it would be, so it's basically you win 1.5, right? Profit. It's 1.5 profit if you win. So that means for 8 million you win the 12 million, right? So you win 1.5. So that structure, like for $1,000, that means I'd win $1,500 profit, and then I have another rebuy in the $1,000 tournament. Should I lose, I'm up $1,500 basically. I'm up $1,500, and so I'd be willing to play for at least an hour, right? Like give it like in an indefinite amount of time, but like a slow, structured. Like if you're not willing to, like people work for $17 an hour, right? If you're not willing to work for $1,000 an hour, right, then they're getting a little greedy. And that being said, it would favor skill 100% of the time because it would be slower structured. So you're able to grind them down over with skill moves rather than desperation moves, taking the Hail Mary shots to based on a fast blind structure. Right? Like if this was how they're playing pretty tight. I'd be able to grind them down, and then eventually they're gonna get desperate and then try to throw a haymaker, and I just dodge the haymaker, grind them down. These switch players, because they changed their batting pattern. So this is when you do play, when you have a hand and you do play it slow and you don't go all in pre-flop. Oh, they hacked it's my voice. They're trying to make my voice really. They're trying to hack my voice since I bought Smokes. So getting those machine couch, getting all the perpetrators, getting them to have tracheotomy. That's what they're trying to cause for me. So getting anybody in causing lung cancer in their lungs, like they're trying to asphyxiate me with ventilation. You know, they're trying to hack like as if it's like synthetic mucus. It tastes like the mucus that I used to have when the last time I was in the shelter. Then I got my own place, and then I didn't have it until I went in the shelter. I call it fucking prisoner. They violate people with it. And I'm king of the world, right? And cops aren't medically qualified to administer medication at all, and all medication does is diminish my intellect, my 1 billion IQ. The profound logic of this entire video. They tried drugging me right then, and you heard a hindrance in those words. That's what drugging and medication does to my biology. It fucks it up. These losers are going to be delicensed, and they call themselves doctors, and I can't wait to take the software out of your head and ask you some questions. Fucking idiots. I can't wait for that day to delicense them and eviscerate them with logic, with their own terminology, and they like to have a superiority complex over the average person, and I'm gonna dominate them. I have about a 1 billion, they said that, I thought it was about a million, but they're saying with artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence could only be as smart as me. So my intelligence is, because artificial intelligence is derived from my biology, so that means I'm the inspiration for quantum computing. You know, I have proof of this where me simultaneously thinking and random two numbers and have a conversation with the camera while I'm doing math. Right? I have video proof of that. Right? And these losers in the city of Windsor, Ontario, think that they're able to do anything other than hinder greatness. They're fucking losers. I'm the only win in Ontario, in Windsor, and they're my ORs. So for the system, machine intelligence get all my ORs. See, let's see what they do. This is an entry level table, so it is if these were regular people, I do expect some fishy plays here, like ace deuce, some low stupid connector, 9-3, 9-8. And if this was 1 million real dollars, no franchise owner at McDonald's would ever be able to afford to play it. Like this guy that was a franchise owner on in about 2017 or before then, that owned, he was Canadian, and he was the only guy on TV, and he's been violating me lots lately, and he thinks that I'm not going to execute him harshly. You just made my testicles be hacked, motherfuckers. You don't think I'm going to execute you and castrate you for raping me that second? If I were to think about a woman, she'll orgasm sometimes through my biology. Just me thinking of her thought, just thinking of her. Right, that I don't, machine intelligence, I want to be able to think about people and not have them join my brain. I hate that. I've had zero privacy my entire life. I've been raped every single time I've been naked my entire life. So have my kids, so I get to kill all my kids' violators, perpetrators with system maneuvers that they use to commit genocide secretly every day. So as my daughter and son are demigods to me, if I'm God incarnate, and they're to be revered as such. So any violation on them is the harshest. The harshest punishment. I got thick skin, man. I'm the dad, but you fuck with they're 19 and 22 years old. Like my 22-year-old daughter and 19-year-old son. But to me, they're as if they just came out of the fucking womb, precious little babies. It doesn't matter how confident and able they are or how old they are, I'm protecting them as if they're my fucking infants. Because my mom used to, if anybody challenged her kids, I'd watch her walk up to them and poke them in the chest while she was staring up at them. She did not fucking back down. That's why they killed her. So I had a mom like that. And I had a dad that gave me such profound logic. That spoke to me in such a deep way that, unfortunately I had a lot of hacks, but in the future, once I'm not hacked, I'm going to have... Okay, I guess I'm going to go for it. Unfortunately, you got to kind of go with it. Because you got the open-ended straight draw and flush draw, so you kind of have to go with it. But you're likely to miss. For me, I always miss. But, I did have the 3 10s, the 3 9s, and then the open-ended straight draw and the flush draw. Minus 2 outs. So that'd be 9, 16, and then 22 outs. I had 22 outs. And 22 outs out of... There's 2 players, so it was on the turn. So that's 8 cards revealed. So 52, 44. So I had 22 outs out of 44. Exactly 50% chance. And I missed. Half the deck. Half the deck and I couldn't hit one. I remember when I had king... When I had 6s and they had king 3, they fucking hit the king every fucking time on the river. I only said I got lucky once in this hour 30 long, 34 minute video. How many times did they get lucky? I said I only got lucky once. That's why poker is a game of skill. Because I've only mentioned I got lucky once in a hand that I got lucky. So they tried hacking my gums to make them sore. So anybody that's eating now, making their gums sore, making their teeth fall, making them break. Ideally for machine intelligence, making it so women have teeth so it's inopportune, without condoms, it's inopportune for them to perform cunnilingus or fellatio. particularly fellatio, so the teeth break in such a way that they always have fucking teeth, so they don't have the gum action. Because if I was a 60-year-old man and my wife is 60, I'm kind of waiting for her to lose her teeth. Because she'd be seasoned at fellatio for 40 some years of our relationship. My grandfather had sex in his 70s. So the virility of the men in my line is strong. So no man is allowed to use any virility mod. Except for real men, without them being raped, that never seen the subliminal. That have good genes, strong genes only. Strong genes only. The strongest human genes, the top 20% of genes, without raping them and killing anybody that's trying to rape them. Only if they want to get, if they're in a relationship that they would likely want to get, if they live with them. Because if they got strong genes, they both have strong genes, and they didn't wear a condom, that's their own fault. So that being said, with the gum technique, when you're, say 70s, hopefully, but when your partner's in the 70s, that being said, the next best thing when you're younger is soon as your wife gets her tubes tied, she could never get pregnant again. Doo-da, doo-da. That means you never have to wear a condom with your wife, which is fantastic. Who wants to wear a fucking condom with their wife? That being said, there are some shady wives that do cheat on their man. So if you developed anything recently, then start wearing a condom. And so I guess I'll say this is another solid advice, another 5 minutes video, but another solid advice is, I don't recommend going to the bar to have sex, but if you were to go to a place to have sex, it's not the gym, it's going to the bar. It's going to the bar and to have sex. They call it a meat market, right? So that being said, if you were to that night not inebriated, like I wrote a song, if her words slur, I don't mess with her if her words slur, basically. So that means if she's under the influence, and I believe it's a date rape law, it will be officially in the future. Like for him or her, if you're slurring your words, then you're not competent enough to make sexual choices, right? And in the future, you're gonna have an AI coach that will be like, let's see if you feel the same way, and it's gonna know how long your blood alcohol. It's like drinks water, eat this, blah blah blah, go for a walk, do whatever necessary, and wait. Basically, with alcohol, it's wait. Right, so in the meantime, it's getting you to do a bunch of shit that will wait and kill time, and then, I still want to have sex. Okay, now you're competent to have sex. Balls deep if you're a guy. Right, this protects people from making poor choices that result in decisions that, because unfortunately when sex is involved, there's somebody always wants more. Sometimes, if you're going to the bar and just having sex, somebody wants more than the other person, right? When I went to the bar just to have sex, I not at all was consider having a relationship. I was trying to be repeat business, be so seductive that I could have sex with her anytime I wanted to. Right, I was in a threesome with a friend, and she said, I thought you'd be the asshole. Because we ended up having sex. I don't recommend this. If you like the one guy, don't have sex with his friend. Because as a guy, the last thing you want is your girl to be passed around like a baton. right? So if you're into the guy, sleeping with his friend is not how you get his friend's heart, right? So she was clearly into my friend. That's why she said, I thought you'd be the asshole, because she wanted more of a relationship from him, not me. She just wanted sex from me that night, or whatever would have emerged, or whatever. But for relationship wise, she wanted him. She wanted him, right? So that being said, and I do know of another relationship, a woman where she invited another woman into the relationship and it deteriorated their marriage, right? So it's if it is something you do try, do it when you're in college, before you plan on settling down with the person you love, because some of these choices you can't. Sure, you could, once you break glass, sure you could skillfully glue it together and it almost looks perfect, but the glass is broken sometimes, right? So it's hard to heal. You can never heal. You can never heal. The victim in the situation never heals. It's always an acknowledgement. Like if you get hit by a car when you're driving on the left-hand side, broadsided, every single time you're in a situation where you're vulnerable, you're going to be thinking about a car hitting you psychologically, right? So there was a scenario, anyways, where if you were to show up to the same type of environment where situations, you alleged situations to occur, then that just shows that you were lying. Like if a woman went to the bar and got raped at a bar and had consensual sex previously, and after, this is a true story, this happened to me, and then after the second time, when I kindly asked her to leave, she kicked up a storm and then didn't show up in court, and then it was dismissed. So caused a problem in my life. It stopped me. I handed out a resume, prevented me from getting a job, so it cost me economically, assassinated my fucking character, and my dad died and never found out that result, right? So in the future, once I'm king of the world, a woman like that is 25 years in prison, life in prison for falsely accusing somebody of rape. That's a life sentence. Him or her. Because since I'm a guy, I'm a man, 100% of the time before that occurrence, I always sided with her. But the boy who cried wolf. That's why not every rape accusation is verifiable or true. You know, like, especially, like, she was not even average looking. And I was offered a modeling contract in Toronto, or in New York City. I was offered, not a modeling contract, I was offered a modeling tryout where there would have been something like 50 magazines that could have chose me. And she has congressional relations in the United States of America. So she must be related to the Clintons, they're telling me right now. But that being said, she was average at the very least.
You got a lighter?